Hey guys, and welcome to All the Mods 9 Progression Log 21. I've got a lot of stuff to show you this week. I've been kind of burned out on Helldivers 2, I'm not gonna lie, so I've been doing a lot of mining, crafting even. I've actually been mining anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. What have you done? Okay. I think I mentioned last time that we'll go over here to ore processing, even though there's nothing really to see. That we needed some more rare earth for things like lanthanum because we needed that for fusion. And we had 100 and something odd thousand before I set up a bunch of fusion reactors. I'll show those next. But I was worried we were going to be running out because you only get this from processing rare earth, and specifically you only get the small piles, and it's a chance output. We're running this at ZPM recipes, so it's, I don't know, how many tiers is that? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so like 6, so it's it's like a 49% chance of each pile. So it's better than it is by base, but it's still not guaranteed. And so I wanted to make sure that we could get as much of it as we can. And the best way to get rare earth is specifically, in my opinion, there's a bunch of different ways you can get it from ore processing. You can get it from neodymium ore, which is pretty rare, bastonite, which is also kind of rare. You can get it from monzonite, which is also kind of rare, but redstone is fairly common, and it's not like the vanilla redstone ore. That stuff just gets turned to dust. But you need like the GregTech variant of redstone ore, and that will get processed at the GregTech method. And normally beforehand we were processing it by purifying it through the washer and then thermal centrifuging it for refined and then just crushing it. And you might be asking why? Well, this is a 33% chance, right? However, that doesn't increase per tier. But when we were doing ore processing before, we weren't really running it at high tier, so that wasn't really worthwhile, I think. Uh, but now we're running at really high tiers. Well, 6, 7, so we're getting like 55% chance now. So now this method is better to get rare earth because you actually get two chances. You get like a one like 50 to 60 odd percent chance to roll it, and then we get a second 11.11% chance to roll it instead of just 133. So we get more rare earth this way than we used to, which is nice. So I had to change a little bit of processing around. It wasn't too bad. It took me like 5-6 minutes. Um, so now we're actually increasing on lanthanum. Oh, well, sort of. Uh, it was about 80,000 sometime last night, and then it went up to 82, and it varies. I think the miners are still going. I don't know. We are continuing to run the miners. It turns out there are still some stuff that we need rare earth in particular, and I know that I've mentioned that the one element, like the one ore you really need from mining, it was only tungsten. You didn't need anything else, even naquita. There's an asterisk on that. You don't need a naquita if you don't accidentally process it, all of it, through the NAC line. Like, we processed literally all of our naquita through NAC line. So we have no normal naquita left. And that's why I can't actually even build any more fusion reactors. I can't even do anything. Because you need naquita alloy for basically everything at this point, and we have none left. So, that's a little bit of a problem. We do have 364,000 enriched naquita dust, 196 Nequadria sulfate dust, 143,000 enriched naquita ingots, and 110,000 Nequadria ingots. And a lot of the stuff came from processing naquita sulfate, because that stuff just gets... We had huge backlogs of that stuff. Because the problem before is I had level limited the NAC line on titanium trifluoride, I think it is. Yeah, I had level limited it on this, so we didn't have. So if we had a certain amount of this in the system, it would stop running. But that's not how you should level limit it. I think the thinking at the time, we can actually just go over and take a look at it. The thinking at the time for me was I didn't want it to I didn't want it to keep going if it wasn't processing it, if it wasn't eating it faster than we were processing it down, because it's a byproduct from the rest of the NAC line processes. And I was like, oh, if this byproduct is too high, we want to stop. Well, that way it ate all of our naquita dust. So now I've leveled this minute on. So if we have over 25,000, then it'll eat more. But we still have to wait till it gets down to the NAC layer, which is also towards the bottom. And even though the miners have been going for kind of a long time, they're still not there yet, unfortunately. But once they do get down there, we'll get a lot of it. It's a lot more common than tungsten and scheelite. So once we just have to wait to get down to the bottom layer, and then we'll be okay. And then we'll be able to get some stuff done. Oh yeah, we'll go over here to factory floor 1. One thing you can do in this pack is, like all the like the logic processors from Applied Energistics. Well, you can actually make these in GregTech forming presses as well. You can make them in the Inscriber and the GregTech forming press. The reasons why we did the Inscriber is we didn't have GregTech available to us at the time, and I just set up using the Inscriber recipes and then just kind of forgot about it for like 450 hours or something like that. Well, we needed a lot of processors we have to make something called the Mega Storage components, and these were extremely expensive. It took a lot of processors to craft, and so the inscribers are pretty damn slow. So I actually moved, well, I wouldn't say moved, because I didn't remove the inscribers at all. So I just added some more of these things with the forming press and using the ZPM ones too, and it's literally it's a one-tick machine. Oh, are we out of silicon? Oh, we are. We ate all of our silicon. That is really funny. I'll have to figure out a solution to that. Anyway, yeah, so these are like one-tick machines, which is why we blasted through all of our silicon. I'm gonna have to put some silicon essence down, I guess. Some silicon seeds. Anyway, so we moved the AE processors over here to make them faster so we could finish out those items, which we did. So that's another item for the ATM star down. We just needed 10 for, I don't know what it's used for. It's used in something. I'm curious. What do we use it in? Oh, you use it in the improbable probability device. Okay. So we have actually a lot of these things. I think we're getting pretty close. I know I've said that before, but we're not entirely done yet, but we're getting there. I know I said like a month or two. It might be a little bit longer. I think we'll probably finish maybe in like January or February or so, if at this current rate. We'll have to see. Moving on. Oh yeah, playtime. Before I forgot. Time played, 22.67 days, and that's like what? Here, let me go ahead and just pull up my phone so I get a more accurate number. That's probably like around like the 250 range, I'm thinking. That's 22.67, 544.08 hours. That was pretty close. Wow, that's a lot of time. Alright, we'll go over to Fusion now. I've built a lot of fusion reactors. So these two are duranium. This one's tritanium. This one is lutetium. Lutetium? Oh, this one is something. I don't know. This one's lutetium, and then this one's americium. So we actually have most of the materials we need for like endgame stuff. We still need a couple more. We need duranium dust for stuff. However, we consume exactly as much duranium as we produce. So we don't have any extra duranium for ingots and stuff. Like americium, we've got a lot of that. Titanium, we've got a lot of that. But like duranium, it stays here. We consume exactly as much as we produce given the fusion reactors we have. So, and to make a couple of these things, like I want to make, what's this for? Well, this is actually the last tier of superconducting coil block. Uses to make the network switches, which I want to do because we need some better. Eventually we're going to be doing research on things that take like 64 computational units a tick, things like that. We want neutronium, and this takes another fusion reactor. So we just need more stuff. We're getting there though. We need only a couple more fusion reactors, I think, and then we'll have everything that needs to progress, though it won't be quick. I don't know if I'm ever going to remove this low tier fusion to Mark 1. Honestly, probably not. It's fine. We have plenty of europium, and like we have 11,000 ingots, so I'm not really too concerned about it at this point. If it ever does become a problem, then I'll just throw down like 2 of them or something, since it doesn't depend on anything else, and nothing depends on europium in terms of fusion products, I should say. Speaking of fusion, I added more heavy water production over here, so we could get more deuterium, since that's like the holdup over here. Because we consume a lot of power. It spikes at like up to 47 mega RF a tick. I added a bunch of storage in there last night because we were getting pretty close to filling it all up. I had to increase the burn rate a little bit. I think we're up to like 72. I had it at 74, but we didn't really need it that high. Yeah, it's at 72 right now, which is more than we could have supported before I added more fuel. This base is very, very hungry, and I actually need to add more turbines soon. This one is effectively tapped out. This one is we still have a little bit of headway on that one, but not too much more. And this one is reserved for the fission reactor. We do have we have a lot of antimatter, and I think we have enough antimatter to complete the pack with. I don't think we're going to need any more, but I want to keep it running. I need to do like an actual count of how many antimatter pellets we need in total between all 10 of our stars and the Greg star. And that way I know when I can actually remove the fission reactor, because it's been running for quite a long time and we still don't have that much antimatter. And this is a really high burn rate reactor. This is the hottest mechanism reactor I've ever built. So it's not like it's a slow reactor or anything. I mean, I could always rebuild it to make it like burn faster, but it already has it's pretty damn hot as it is right now, and I don't really feel like pushing it any higher would be a good idea. I don't know. I mean, look at this coolant tank. It's just passively almost halfway full, like 40% full, just because of how the way it transfers stuff. So I think we're just kind of in like a waiting game here. We do consume the polonium faster. Oh no, we don't. Okay. Well, here we go. Well, there we go. How's that? That's better. Alright, well, problem solved. Though we are consuming even more power, but it's fine. I might have to up the burn rate a little bit more. One thing I do want to note over here, actually, is there are something called entangled blocks, and this was brought up to me a couple times in the past. And one thing that mechanism valves are supposed to do is that when they're adjacent to each other, they have infinite transfer rate. And theoretically, using a binder, like you bind a block to an entangled block. So if I were to like do something like this, this block is considered this block here. And supposedly, if I place this block on a valve here, like this one right here, it should provide an infinite transfer rate. So I can go ahead and show you, and it doesn't actually work. Right? So look, it's not transferring the steam there. It's building up in here. So I don't know why it's not transferring right here. If you guys had any like, its flow rate is simply non-existent. I don't know why it's not transferring. I wonder if it's a problem with entangled blocks. I don't know. However, it's not something. It just doesn't work. I was hoping it would work. That way I wouldn't have to use entangle-porters and stuff, because entangle-porters are rate limited to 8.1 million millibuckets a tick, which isn't enough to completely use up a full turbine, but it's close enough that I don't really care. So if you guys have any ideas on why it doesn't work, please let me know. Maybe it's because I'm mixing. There's like one entangle-porter and then one entangled block or something, and it's not. I don't know. I don't know why it doesn't work. I don't know what that red binder is bound to unknown dimension. Minecraft overworld. What do you mean? Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. If someone had any ideas. What's next? Oh, someone wanted me to go over the base layout. It's kind of why I kind of rushed through a little bit of everything else. I did want to spend a little bit of time going over the base layout. So the way I design my bases is I want to be as orderly as possible in order to make sure expansion is very simple and is more of painting by numbers rather than actual base design. This design is a lot more utilitarian than my antimatter chemistry base, even though they are laid out in sort of like a similar idea of straight walkways, and this one is chunk aligned partially. That's why this one is more orderly than the AMC base. And it also doesn't have like the walls which I really liked about my AMC base, but I did want to make sure that I wasn't spending time as much time building as I was on AMC. I did a lot of building on AMC, and my first Greg Tech experience, I wanted to make sure I was focusing on Greg. Um, Anyway, so how I set up my bases is we have 3x3 districts in most places, though some of these old, the newer, or the first sections were not 3x3, they were smaller. My brother built this one, that's why it's not chunk aligned. So I have three by three districts which are chunk aligned, which means each individual one of these squares is a single chunk. Oftentimes you don't really want to put multi-blocks over a chunk boundary, especially GregTech ones. They can get kind of finicky with it, and I think some mods won't even let them get turned on. How this is set up is if you build inside of the smooth stone tiles, you will always be inside of the chunk. Now, there's other ways to do this. The way I've done this means you have a slightly less building area, and if you just designed it, I like it this way. How you chunk align your base is entirely up to you, but this is how I did it. It's a corner and then 7, and then a middle one, and then another 7, and that will get you a grid that will align to the chunk. Each 3x3 district is then just placed somewhere along wherever it fits. I try to respect the terrain at least a little bit. Like, I didn't really want to build over the water, for example, which is why there's no, 3x3 district right here, even though it would have been right across from that one. So I tried to respect the terrain a little bit, but however much if you choose to do that or not, that's up to you. Like, I very much did not respect the terrain over here. There was a hill here, I promise. It's gone now. Or building the road right through the hill and just making a cutout. I call that the American Highway Special. There's a hill in the way. No, there's not. So I actually have channels turned off as well, which is why I don't have to have a massive controller, or I don't have to have massive. Why I just have one cable line going all the way down and connecting all these things, which is like 47 bajillion interfaces and stuff. If you do have channels enabled, this is going to be a much more complicated cable layout, and you have to use P2Ps and lots of other stuff, and I don't really know. I wouldn't do that. I'm not a huge fan of channels to begin with, so I just generally disable them. So I guess base layout, I keep things chunk aligned, I keep things orderly, I make sure that I have room to expansion, I don't build myself into a corner. I can theoretically just expand north as far as I feel like and just infinitely keep going and it wouldn't be a problem. I can always just branch out and keep going that way. I've made sure that I never need to add more room somewhere and go, I don't know where to put this, or there's nowhere for me to easily put a new room somewhere or a new setup somewhere. I've had some spaghetti bases before where it kind of gets like that, where everything is so cluttered. Like before I started playing, my first super orderly base was honestly Mechanical Mastery, and that was still a little bit of a mess in some places. But up until then, I did turbo spaghetti bases, and it made it really, really hard to figure out where to put new setups or to expand old ones. So making sure you keep things orderly with room to expand is the most important aspect of any base, I think. The other thing is you want to make sure you plan out your walkways rather than where your rooms go. Place your walkways and then figure out how they attach to your rooms. That's what I did to my antimatter chemistry bases. I'd build a walkway out, and then I would build a room around wherever I had space there. So I planned out my walkways first. When I played antimatter chemistry, I didn't do that. I planned out where my rooms went and then routed my hallways there, and that kind of made them a little bit finicky sometimes, where I had to miss the pattern because I had a repeating pattern in my hallways, and depending on where I put the buildings or the rooms, it would break that pattern, which I was kind of okay with because I never really spent any time in the hallways anyway past a certain point because I was using teleporters everywhere. Not unlike all the travel linkers and stuff. I had a single hub with RF tools matter transmitters that went to all the different rooms and stuff. So it really depends in that case of whether you're willing to break that pattern, and obviously I think you should be willing to break the pattern if you have to. But that's up to you. So I guess I don't really have a lot to say in terms of base layout. This is I learned base layout from Threefold, so if you really want to learn how to build, I would watch Threefold stuff. He's really, really good, and he inspired me to build much better bases. Everything I've ever learned on how to build a better base came from Threefold. So that's my thing. But yeah, I think chunk aligned bases are very nice. I do wish I had a slightly different style in terms of how I did some of the buildings here. Like the problem with GregTech bases is they are in a constant state of flux. They are never the same. It's very rare that you build like some setup somewhere and then you just never upgrade it. I've upgraded most. I've either upgraded or rebuilt or torn out almost every single thing I built in the first 250 hours of the game. There's only a handful of setups in the GregTech areas that just got built and then were never touched. Like over here's one. This one, this chunk here, like this drive bay, and this like weird drawer area. That stuff got built like when we started GregTech, and I just never tore it out because I never needed the space and I never really cared, right? But that's like the exception to the rule. And part of the problem with a base with this design is it needs a setup to be more or less done before it looks good, like this. Like this alloy, this is still an MV alloy smelter, right? And very few of these things ever actually get used at this point, but like this is done, right? And it looks good. However, virtually everything isn't done, and they kind of look like trash until they're done. And, again, constant state of flux. You're constantly tearing things out. You're replacing machines, removing cables, and putting higher tier ones in. So I kind of wish I had figured out a slightly different method of, I guess, hiding the machines. Maybe like machine walls would have been better or something, but I don't know. Maybe just accepting, just always completing the walls, and then just accepting I would have had to tear them out over time. Or I think the other thing is this is a very compact setup. The way it's done here is we have a single chunk, right, with 4 different corners that have a 3x3. They're 3 5x5 corners with like a 1 block gap in between all of them, so you can walk in between. And this meant I could fit a lot of machines in a chunk, lots of machines, which was, excuse me, kind of important because as you can see, we have almost every corner filled. There's not really a lot of free space anymore. And especially, look how many benders and wire mills we have in here. We have a ton. So it was really, I think it was kind of necessary for me to build this compact in some cases, but I also sometimes feel that it may have been a little bit better for me to not really build so compact and just accept that I would have needed a lot more space to fit this many machines in here. Because it does kind of look like trash sometimes, especially the ore processing area, even though I'm never rebuilding this. I just need to finish all the deco work over here, if I'm being honest. I need to figure out what I'm going to be doing with like tungsten processing over here. Probably just throw it into like another washing thing right here. Maybe replace one of these things. Not all of these things need to be like sodium persulfate, for example. One of these things can be mercury or whatever you need for sodium processing. Yeah, mercury. Or not, so hydrochloric acid? Yeah, hydrochloric acid. Yeah. So there's lots of ways to design a base, and I will not sit here and tell you that I am the best at it. I'm actually kind of bad. Uh, my modern Minecraft is a constant learning experience. Is the number one. Oh no, is this? I never noticed this. This is gonna bug me. I'm gonna have to fix this. Oh man, that sucks. Anyway, modern Minecraft is a constant learning experience. You're always learning something new, whether it's a new mod or it's a new way of applying mods you've already known about, or if it's a new way of building so you can build a better tech base. Always accept that you know nothing. That's the number one piece of advice I think I can give to anyone who wants to play modded Minecraft. You're always going to be Googling something. You're always going to be looking up a guide. You're going to be like scrambling between GitHubs or whatever, and hope to God some of them have some kind of, README on it or whatever. Modern Minecraft is a constant learning experience. We also have to learn how to Google, and also at some point you just have to sit there and just kind of fuck around and find out. Because some mods are pretty bad in terms of documentation, and some mods are really good in terms of documentation. So you gotta figure out and learn. I hope that was somewhat helpful. I know that was a little bit of a mad scramble / ramble, in terms of information. But if you'd like a quick TLDR, it's plan out your walkways first and make sure your rooms are orderly. Whether they're the same size every time, or if you have a specific idea or a methodology on how you build them, quote unquote, a building doctrine, I think, and you want to make sure you're consistent too. However, what you decide your doctrine will be, room is as big as it needs to be. Room will always be a 3 by 3 chunk, or rooms are always chunk aligned, and some, are a square set of chunks. Like, would you build 2 by 2 districts? Would you build 3 by 3, 5 by 5, etc.? How far? Do you want to make sure they're odd numbers so you always have a center chunk? Do you care about that? I would make sure that your walkways have a center block instead of a center two blocks. It just makes it look a little better. I'm not a huge fan. I've tried center two block building styles before, and I just don't like them. They just don't look good in Minecraft, in my opinion. So I would go for center block building styles, but again, it's not my base. If you think it looks good, then it looks good, right? And always be willing to try new things too, I think. If you think, like, sometimes you just gotta build things for yourself. Like over here, I've been messing around with some more foundations. Like Cosmic started using some black concrete bricks underneath her platform to really give it. I really liked that idea. I really liked giving it. It really made the base feel a lot more substantial, a lot heavier, right? Really felt like an industrial park that was like cutting through the ground, right, rather than floating above it. And so I started doing a lot more of that. I'm curious what you guys think. I mean, even if you guys don't like it, I'm gonna keep doing it because I really like it. But I'm curious if you guys like it too. There are some challenges that come with this new style of building, for example, right? Like over here, I don't want to just build the foundation all over the water, right? I think that would look not great. But I've also built a bridge already. I already have a style for bridges over here. So now I have to figure out a way of merging this kind of bridge style, or maybe I'll do another bridge style, but some bridge style with that kind of foundation style for like the rest of the districts, how they're like, the rest of the districts and the land-based pathways. Uh, I don't know. That'll be like a building challenge that I'll have to, especially as a junction here, as this bridge is we have a T-junction in the middle of this bridge. So that's going to be another building challenge. And that's honestly part of the fun, I think, of building bases like this. Is it's not just, all tech all the time, though it can be if you want it to be. You can just build like a giant flat platform and ignore everything else and just, carve across the land and don't build any supports, even, just because you don't want to spend the time. And that's a way of building. And if you want to do that, go for it. All the power to you. But sometimes it's nice to take some time. Some small details that aren't really necessary in the grand scheme of things, but are fun anyway. Take a look at for my Animator Chemistry run. I did control rooms for the fusion fission yards, and I did 2 of them in the end. And I built a little tiny skywalk between them. It took me like an hour, and then I actually built a skywalk over the fusion fission yard. Was it particularly important? No. But did it take me like 3 hours to do it? Yeah. Was it fun? Fuck yeah, dude. I loved it. It was actually one of my favorite part of my base at that point was the control room. Sometimes you really want some height variation in how you design a base because that can really bring it to life. That's one reason why I love these command towers. I love the height variation and just the overlooks and stuff. I think that's one of the most important part of a base for me is some form of a height variation and a way to look over my base without having to fly. I love accessibility in my base. I want to make sure the idea is if wherever possible you do not need any other items to get anywhere else. I don't even need the staff of traveling either. I should be able to get anywhere in my base with a completely empty inventory. You can just, when standing on a travel anchor, you can just shift and you can just teleport between them. So I can get anywhere in my base with an empty inventory without a problem. It's not important because I have keep inventory on. I've always played like that. And I haven't died in like 300 hours or something. So it's never really a problem. But that's like a detail that I personally like. And I also think that if you follow that doctrine, at least in my mind, it makes for some more interesting bases. Rather than having a bunch of like super disconnected setups that you have to get between by flying, it leans to a more connected, completed base in many aspects. But again, every base is your own base, or if you're playing with friends, I guess your base. And you should build in a way that you enjoy, however that is. Maybe you enjoy like the super spaghetti bases. Maybe you like, trying to work in, you like, building a super compact base. I mean, go for it. I would hate to be there. I couldn't live like I couldn't. I've played bases like that. I played many bases like that, and I couldn't go back. It was, giant machine rooms of just, like huge spaghetti cables. I couldn't live like that anymore. I've seen the light of like, a nice orderly base, and I can't go back. So I know I've kind of harped on a lot of this stuff, so maybe I'll go ahead and cut here. I hope that was helpful to people who were asking about how I build my base. Uh, I don't know how helpful it will be. I just build a base, but chunk alignment when possible if you want to. Plan your pathways first and then build your rooms, if you're going to build rooms at all, or districts, I guess in this case, so not really rooms. Maybe you just build like a giant flat plane, and I guess that would work too. Um, and make sure to spend some time on some small details for yourself. Something that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but something that you really want. Like the command towers are super helpful, and obviously I could get around without them. But sometimes you just gotta try things. All right, guys, I've rambled for long enough, I'm sure. So I hope you guys have had a good week. It's certainly been one of the weeks of all time. That's all I'll say about that, I guess. Um, I think next week will be a better. We'll have to see. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys have a good upcoming week, and I'll see you all again next week.